Come on in to Talk of Champions. Sudu and Zach here with Brad Logan, who is in Nashville at the moment on site for the SEC men's basketball tournament. I'm obviously filling in for Ben Garrett again, who is Brad. He's still in Disney. He's on his way back. What's the deal with Benny?
Yeah, I sent him a message. I think he's on his way back from Disney/Universal. So I'd love to get him on the show to get a chance to visit with him, but I know he's enjoying his family time, and we definitely appreciate that. So yeah, appreciate you jumping on. It was a good one last night. We had a great post game show with Zach Berry. Zach's supposed to jump on with us here in just a little bit. We'll get his thoughts on the game, but before he comes on, Sudu, your thoughts on Ole Miss, big win last night over Georgia, and did it surprise you any that Ole Miss won the game?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly surprised me. I told you yesterday when we did Talk of Champions yesterday morning, I said if they can get past Georgia, that's when I start getting a little excited about, okay, maybe this team has finally put it together. It was the second half was obviously, it's never easy with Ole Miss, but the second half was a little nerve-wracking.
Mm-hmm.
But what I did like is they were able to kind of get over that adversity we've seen in the past. I think we had that stat where I think 11 of 14 games this season in conference play, they've either led at halftime or have been within a possession late in the game and have not been able to pull it out. Granted, as you know, I'm around Georgia people a lot, and they want to talk about the goaltending and the continuation shot, not getting 3 free throws and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, Ole Miss, when it mattered the most, really came through clutch there at the end. AJ Storr obviously having another great game. Malik Dia doing his thing. Travis Perry, making his impact. It feels like the last couple of games we've seen a complete team effort, or we've seen individuals step up that we haven't necessarily do so. And this is the type of basketball you want to see in March. This is exactly the type of play that can help you make a run in the conference tournament and potentially, get into the big dance. I'm not saying that's where I'm at yet with Ole Miss, but now you can start kind of believing and going, okay, we've got this 2-game sample plus a couple games to end the season where you started seeing some promise, maybe this group kind of gelling together. With all that being said, I think it's very okay to kind of believe now that, hey, this team might be able to make a run.
We talked, it was last week too, or I say last week, the Saturday following the bracket being revealed, and you and I both thought the draw as it shook out with Texas, if you get past Texas, you feel pretty good about Georgia and Alabama. Frankly, Ole Miss played Alabama well not long ago inside the pavilion. And so the draw, I don't think you could quote-unquote draw it up any better. And Ole Miss is proving that. I thought it was interesting. I know you watched the post-game press conference. It was Chris Beard never gets too high, never gets too low. But I felt like Malik Dia, the way he answered the questions and was almost to the point of, I want to make the tournament, but I don't want to quit playing basketball with these guys. It's almost like they're feeling a bit of unity, even though it's this late in the year. It feels like, and I asked Zach this last night, I was like, is it taking this long for this team to gel together? I don't know if that's the case, but they're playing better now than they played all year.
Yeah, I think after a certain point, based on what we've seen early in the season and what we've seen the last couple games, my only conclusion that I can come to is this has been a mental thing all year long with them. And you've noticed the frustration with Chris Beard. I mean, you remember that game, the post game, it was kind of early in conference slate, I want to say, where AJ Storr is talking about, I think he's talking about effort or something along those lines, and Beard kind of interrupts him, right? And almost embarrasses him a little bit in that moment. And you could just sense that kind of frustration with Beard. It's not a talent issue. You obviously know the talent on this roster and the experience and how much money was spent to get this roster. And I know there's been a lot of questions about maybe Beard and his staff just didn't make the right evaluations. But if anything, this tournament is proving that maybe it's been a mental thing all year for this team. Maybe they haven't been as locked in, or maybe the stakes haven't felt as high, because now when you're facing elimination, you're facing your own quote unquote death, right, for this season. This team is responding very well. You were up by 23 at one point. I know that lead dwindled down, and Georgia's press and all these other 3-pointers and everything they did in the second half kind of allowed them to come back into the game. But you were playing some dominant basketball that we haven't seen all season long, which leads me to believe that this has 100% been an effort and a mental thing more than skill and chemistry. Now, I do think, like, throughout the course of the season, with the amount of losses they took and the mistakes they made, I think all those things are benefiting them now. They're able to look back and go, okay, what worked, what didn't. But it is promising, and you got look. You're facing Alabama. The last time you played them really well in the first half, like you said. It was really the second half that Bama kind of put it together and ran away with that game. But that was a game where Dia wasn't even there, right? He only played like 8 minutes. He was in the doghouse. Didn't really get much. Storr actually had a career high in that one, 27 points.
Yeah.
So you've done some. You've seen this team before, and you've had some good moments, and you weren't even at your best at the time. And now you have Dia playing the way he is, Storr playing the way he is. We saw Perry step up. Before Scott fouled out. I mean, there's just so many guys that the last couple of games have really made an impact that it shows promise that, look, I get it. Alabama's awesome. They are a tournament team, but you do have something to go off of maybe to build a little confidence, not just from the SEC tournament, but also the way you played them in the first half, knowing you weren't at your best at the time.
One thing that I noticed, and I was on a show this morning, and it really came to me a little bit. This was a couple things that I noticed. Sudu, and I'd be curious your thoughts. Chris Beard wore a coat. He's worn a coat the last couple of games.
Yeah.
Secondly, he didn't sit down very much at all last night. Third, putting his hands on his knees, and I'm not saying he was more into the game. It's just he really paced a lot. But the most important thing, the substitution pattern is not indicative of this team the way they substituted earlier this year. It was mass substitution. It was almost like Chris was trying to find his way. Last night and the night before, it was a really good substitution pattern. 7-8 guys played, and it felt like they got into the flow of the game. Now, as you made mention, the 23-point lead squandered, came down to 3. Ole Miss never trailed, has not trailed the entire tournament. But Ole Miss did a really good job in winning time, getting the game down the stretch to the free throw line, making the free throws. Keza Jiffa makes the free throw. We would learn that Beard would talk to Keza in the huddle, hey, you want to go to Hall Steakhouse? And I don't know if that was a way to kind of break the nervousness, but obviously it worked. But we saw a team that kind of lost their legs. I think that's what I'm going to be watching tonight. How well are Ole Miss going to be with their legs? Because history proves day 3 in this tournament is brutal. Alabama's obviously coming in fresh with the double bye. So if you look at what this team is, a couple of things, I think from my standpoint, I'm going to be watching their legs. But your thoughts, Chris Beard seems to be coaching a little bit different in this tournament, not substitution near as much, and just seems be a little bit different in regards to his mannerisms on the sidelines.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you're kind of at the point you're like, okay, what else do we have to lose? I mean, this has been the worst year of his career. I'm sure he's tried everything through the course of the season. We've seen some of it. Some of it's been public. Like we said, the press conference, calling out different guys. He's tried almost everything this year. And I think now he's at the point where he's like, all right, just like his players, we want to keep this going. We're going to look at this one game at a time. And part of that is probably, hey, I'm going to take it a little easier. I'm going to go easier because for him as well, he recruited these guys. He chose to pay these guys to come to Ole Miss. I'm sure there's a sense of, oh, this is ending for him as well. And pressure, man, pressure does different things to different people. And we know how good Chris Beard is. He's great in the postseason, especially. That maybe this is one of those things where the pressure is actually good for this Ole Miss team, not just for the players, as we talked about with these guys knowing, hey, this is the last time we're probably going to play together as a team, but also for the coaches as well.
Looking at the numbers, and we went over these last night, but some things that really jumped out to me is I felt like Travis Perry had his best game as a Rebel. Finished with 16 points. But most importantly, Sudu, 4 of 8 from 3. And we asked him in the post-game press conference, or there was a question was asked by one of the media members, and it was essentially when you made that 3, the first one, and you threw your hands in the air, and there's kind of a story behind that. But it was almost a sense of relief. And at that point, he really took off. Finished 4 of 8 from 3. Finished, like we said, with 16 points. A big night for him. And although showing up much on the scorecard, James Scott, 31 minutes, only 7 points, but 13 boards. Chris Beard called him out, talking about how big he was. He's a huge component. And once again, I talked this morning on – and basically what I said is everybody in this team has kind of figured out what their role is. And it feels like Malik Dia has kind of taken a leadership role, kind of been in the doghouse, as you pointed out correctly earlier. But he's kind of been a leader in the huddle. And it feels like that whether it be Carmodine at the point Patton Pinkins kind of figuring out some things. Didn't score a lot, but was, played 20 minutes. Travis Perry from 3 played one of his best, the best game of his career at Ole Miss, playing 30 minutes. Dia 25, Scott 31, as we talked about. Carmine 36 minutes. So, and then we saw AJ Shore off the bench with 27, kind of carving their way. It feels like they're kind of figuring some things out. Unfortunately, it's at the end of the season, but it feels like that everybody's kind of figuring out their role.
100%. And it's part of what we talked about yesterday too, Brad, is I think guys are a little more willing to accept whatever that role may be, or accept that I'm going to have to do this, or I'm going to have to dive for the loose ball, or whatever it is. Like, there's just a different level of effort as well out there. And I think there's maybe a bit of a argument or debate within the Ole Miss fan base of, was it effort all year? Was it not? I mean, but the team I'm seeing right now, every facet of the way they're playing is different from what I've seen throughout the season. We've seen flashes, but not complete performances like we've seen the last couple games. So, once again, when you're facing mortality, so to speak, it can bring out a different side of you, and it's exciting. And it's not like it's going to be easy against Alabama. This is a very talented team. They have, 3 talented guards in Philon, Holloway, Wrightsell. The big guy, Sherrell's been coming along recently as well with Betty Yako's absence. Like, they've got some dudes over there, and they love to push the ball and push the pace and play, the way Bama does. But once again, this month is about magic more than anything, Brad. I mean, I know it kind of sounds silly sometimes to say that in an athletic setting, to talk about magic, but that's what March is about. We see it time and time again, different conference tournaments, in the actual NCAA tournament, and it just literally changes the entire way the game is played this month, just because everyone knows one loss could mean it's all over. Right, especially in the tournament, but the conference tournament, for a team like Ole Miss that has no other prospects, one loss ends it all. And so you're going to see a different side to these teams in these pressure situations, especially a Chris Beard-led team.
And what's fascinating to watch is we saw Chris Beard at the end of the game, and it's funny, in the press conference, the first thing he says is, good luck to Texas in the NCAA tournament. Good luck to Georgia in the NCAA tournament. And he has all but said, this is the NCAA tournament for them. It's the tournament starts now for Ole Miss, because they have to win this tournament to get to the NCAA tournament. If I came to you tonight and Ole Miss has beaten Alabama, how did that happen?
I think you got another complete performance. I think, once again, Dia and Store are just going to have to be the guys that lead the way, in my opinion. I mean, we've seen it the last couple games. When those two play well, it all kind of clicks. And Store's a guy we know. Dia for sure. We've seen it with him, especially. I want to say a year ago he almost had 20 rebounds. I want to say he had like 20 plus points and almost 20 rebounds against Alabama. Something ridiculous. This is a guy we've seen play well at a high level. Store's a guy we just kind of been waiting to put it together consistently, and has even always put in the best effort and all these different things we talk about off the court with him. So I think those two are going to have to come up, and then you're just going to need, other guys. Like Scott, like he was awesome on the boards. Hopefully stays out of foul trouble, continues to give you that. I want to see more from Pinkins. We've seen some great stuff from the young kid all throughout the season. Somebody else, just like you had Travis Perry step up a couple nights ago. Klafke had some good plays. Like, you're just going to continue to need the entire cast to, even if it's a little bit here and there. And then you're going to need your big two, kind of your dudes with Dia and Store to really give you whatever they've given you, the juice they've given you the last couple games. Ultimately, I think that's what will decide it. And the way they've been playing defense, man, just keep doing that. Just keep playing defense the way if they do that. Now, granted, the 3-point, Georgia really killed them from that in the second half. So you're gonna have to kind of shore that up a little bit, not giving them open shots. But overall, I've loved the way they played defense the last couple games. Just keep doing that.
Yeah, Georgia 9 of 38 from 3, but 9 of those, or a large part of those, came in the second half. Rebels and Alabama Crimson Tide getting after it tonight here in Nashville. Bridgestone Arena, 6 o'clock, and excited to see what the Rebels can do. In the attendance, Sudo, I don't know if you saw this, but Pete Golding was in the building. He's been a huge advocate for Ole Miss, both men's and women's basketball. We haven't talked a lot about the women's program. They'll be awaiting their NCAA fate. There's a watch party at the Pavilion. I think it's at 5 o'clock on Sunday, so an opportunity for you to celebrate with the Ole Miss women's basketball team as they await and see where they go. I don't think there's a chance they host. I think they're probably going on the road. Those hosting chances kind of went by the wayside with the loss to Florida and then to Kentucky, and, of course, the losses to LSU and South Carolina. But they did play well in the SEC tournament over in Greenville, and so an opportunity for, obviously, to make the tournament, but you were hoping that Ole Miss was going to be able to host. So that watch party is taking place at 5 o'clock. Real quick, before we get to baseball, I want to ask you, Sudu, about football for a moment. We've seen the recent news that broke that Trinidad Chambliss, and in a particular lawsuit, is filing claim against the NCAA because he wasn't able to be featured on the EA Sports cover, and I'm sure there's a lot of money that comes with that. There's a lot of exposure, and I would think that Ole Miss is upset about that because that's a ton of exposure for the university. So yet another fly in the ointment for this Trinidad Chambliss NCAA mess, if you will.
Man, I that was one of the more upsetting things I've seen in the last month or so was seeing that yesterday. Me as a avid, just a huge fan of the game itself. Like, I've played it since I was a kid. Always wanted an Ole Miss guy on the cover, especially, when I was younger. Always used to, hope for that. I guess we did get that with Dart, kind of. They had those like alternate covers with a bunch of guys, but man, first of all, like, as a fan, that pisses me off. Second of all, just for the kid, man. I mean, that's one of those bucket list things when you're just a fan of football or you're growing up as a kid. Like, you think about that. Oh, one day I'll be on the cover of EA Sports College Football or whatever, right? Like, and the fact that he was in the running for it, probably would have gotten it, in the NCAA's, I don't know what to call it at this point, disdain for Trinidad, really. I just can't describe why they've gone to these lengths to stop this kid who's very clearly deserved an extra year from getting the year, and now they're appealing, and now they've cost him a potential cover on EA Sports College Football 27. It's just atrocious, man. And it goes against everything they claim to be, and we're here for these student athletes, we're here for their success, whatever it may be. It's just, once again, the NCAA just continues to prove that they don't care. I mean,
I'm just
disappointed.
What did you make of the news out of the Big Ten and its commissioner about all of this tampering business? What did you make of all that?
I think, once again, it's kind of like we touched on yesterday, Brad. I think the Big Ten's trying to. I don't think it's necessarily the Big Ten saying don't enforce tampering. I think it's them trying to say, okay, this isn't sustainable. You can't just enforce tampering. Also, let's be real. The article came out yesterday, or maybe it was a tweet from Ross Dellinger mentioning how, Ole Miss the NCAA is looking into Ole Miss, based off of Dabo Swinney's claims. But kind of accompanying that was Ole Miss also has receipts on a lot of other schools tampering with its players. And so there's this fear of, well, if we report them, then they'll report us, and then someone else will report them, and someone else will report us, and then it's just you know what I mean? It's like dominoes falling. Everybody's getting reported. Everybody, well, based on the NCAA's history, not everybody will be punished, equally. But I think the Big Ten's just trying to kind of, take a leadership role by saying, this isn't sustainable. Here's what we should do. See, we're coming up with the plan. Listen to us, while also probably trying to protect their member institutions and whatever, because we know this, Brad. I mean, people always ask for receipts when you talk about this stuff. I don't know how to provide receipts when things are told to you on an anonymous basis by people that you and I both know. Like, we talk to people that are in positions where, of course, they know what's going on, right? And they tell us stuff, and you can't always just say, well, this person said this, but like, we know what's going on behind the scenes. And, I don't know if most schools or conferences would want to open that can of worms. Now, not everybody supported what the Big Ten said. Obviously, I think the SEC, Greg Sankey, has come out and said that, the NCAA needs to be able to enforce their rules, and other conferences didn't really align with what the Big Ten said. But to me, the Big Ten's approach was they're just trying to assert themselves as kind of the leaders. We're going to kind of lead us into the new era of college sports, while also maybe trying to protect some schools in their conference as well. That's really what I took away from that.
What did you make Matt Baker, who's done a great job at the Tampa Bay Times and now with the Athletic, I believe, posted basically a story that he was trying to find out what the quote unquote, kind of dumb it down for people like me, trying to figure out the receipts. What are the receipts from Clemson? What are the things that you turned over to the NCAA? And in true Clemson fashion, which no surprise from Dabo, they're citing FERPA and they're citing that whatever the reasoning is. Long story short, they're not turning over the receipts. And so, we heard Dabo 18 minutes. So 18 minutes, he went on a diatribe along with Graham Neff, who is athletic director, would come on after that. But now they're not wanting to provide the receipts as we bring in Zach Berry to the stage. But Sudu, what were your thoughts on the conversation piece that Baker tries to but tries to get the receipts? They're not going to provide the receipts.
Yeah, and I don't know what FERPA has to do with those receipts necessarily. FERPA is about the like student records, I want to say, right? I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to act like I know everything about FERPA, but just what I know about it, it has to do with, I believe, student like education records. So I don't know what that records request would have had to do with the tampering receipts would have had to do with that personally. But man, it's I think you and I touched on it briefly at the end of the show yesterday, but yeah, you spent all that time calling out another school and saying we got receipts, we're going to turn it over to the NCAA. You made this big public show. That's my point with this entire denying these requests thing. If there was not a big public show and they denied his request, I think the journalist in me would be like, okay, well, that he's got a right to ask for those, whatever. But I wouldn't be as like upset about it. What upsets me is you made this big public show a few months ago or whatever that was. And called Ole Miss out publicly and made all this, made a huge fuss about it. And now somebody's like, well, let us see the receipts you claim to have. Let's, it would benefit Clemson, right? Based on the press conference they had to let this information be out there, at least in the court of public opinion, where it should benefit them based on the way they've acted. But no, it would be a violation of FERPA, apparently, Brad. So can't do that.
Zach, let's bring you in. I appreciate you joining us, Zach Berry, with the Ole Miss Spirit. It's, of course, an affiliate of On3. You can join today for a special price at omspirit.com. That's an affiliate of On3. Zach, we talked about it last night about Trinidad Chambliss, the case that he's putting against the NCAA in regards to EA Sports. Secondly, on top of that, the NCAA talking about the Big Ten and the tampering situation. And I just talked with Sudu about Matt Baker from the Athletic, I believe, and talking about where are the receipts. It's kind of a thing now where the NCAA needs to put up or shut up.
I think the answer is right there where you're asking for the receipts and you're not getting them. I think it's because a lot of other people have receipts and it'll come back on Clemson. I've heard that for the better part of a month and a half, that Ole Miss and I want to say other programs have proof that Clemson reached out to players before they entered the portal. Obviously, it's a domino effect. We talked about this when all of this came up with Luke Farrelly. And, it's simple. Clemson, if you didn't want it to happen, sign him to a rev share deal, get him locked up. Then the agent says, okay, well, we'll stay with you if you give us this. Okay, well, like Don Draper, that's what the money is for. So if you wanted him, pay him. You didn't. He reopened his recruitment. He goes to Ole Miss. So, yeah, I think it's pretty cut and dry there, in my opinion. If Clemson really wanted to push it, they could. I don't think they want to do that. And I don't think the NCAA or the ACC or the SEC wants them to do that. And they're probably having conversations behind closed doors about that because it's just going to create a domino effect. Because Pete Golding and everybody on that staff has a lot of proof of tampering before entering the portal with Lane Kiffin and everything that went in with LSU. That's a whole Pandora's box, can of worms, whatever metaphor you want to use, that would just be, that's not what the NCAA wants. That's not what the SEC wants. It's not what the ACC wants or any other conference in the Power Four. As far as Chambliss and the NCAA, that's huge. I think Tom Mars and William Liston are going to really hone in on that, because if you think about it, and let's just take a step back from trying to do some lawyering here, because I'm not an attorney. I have lots of friends are, and I ask them what all of this means. But just we're all in kind of the same generation. We're all around the same age here. You know how big of a deal NCAA football, the video game, is, and you know how big of a deal it is to be a cover athlete, not just for Trinidad but for Ole Miss. To have somebody on the cover of that video game, it's only going to create more publicity, more marketing. Just more opportunities for Ole Miss, not just for Trinidad, but for Ole Miss, the football program down the line. I expect them, if it comes to that, to really hammer that home and how big of a potential loss it is. I don't know if EA Sports has officially moved on or not. I know that there's some rumblings that they have, but it could be done very quickly, easily, if this goes away, that they swing back and circle back to Trinidad, like, hey, no, we're good. We can put you on the cover.
Zach, it's funny what you just mentioned about like the benefit for the school itself, but just from the NCAA tries to act like we're here for the students, we're here for their benefit, that's what we're here for, right? And I was telling Brad, I'm like, dude, this is a bucket list thing for kids. Like, imagine you and me growing up playing that game, like. You're playing with your Road to Glory guy, and you're like, man, one day I could be on this cover if I, whatever. Like, I'm sure Trinidad has had the exact experience like every other, kid in his teens or whatever playing this game. And this literally goes against what they claim to stand for to me. I'm like, yeah, forget the financial stuff and all that, the brand marketing. That's all the stuff that comes with the business side of things. But just from like a personal human standpoint, from a student athlete, which they claim to support and be there for, it's like that's the worst sin to me. Is like, I can't imagine being Trinidad and hearing maybe, oh, you're going to be in the running for this, and then sorry, actually they're not even sure if you're going to play because the NCAA won't go away.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of the thing with the whole court case, right? Was, okay, when he signed with Ole Miss, literally everybody said he had 2 years of eligibility. And then all of a sudden it's like, no, wait, hold on. No, we were wrong. It was just one. Now you're going to have to take us to court to fight for that second year. If you're wanting to improve the experience of a student athlete, I don't understand what basis you have to fight somebody like this, where this isn't a, enter name here of a guy that's, man, I'm just trying to get my 9th year in, man. Like, I don't want to go get a real job. Like, I just want to keep playing football. Like, this isn't that.
Right.
This is just a guy that should have been medically redshirted, but Division II and all that's different. And, Ferris State didn't do it. In hindsight, I think the Ferris State people are like, yeah, we kind of dropped the ball there, but that's neither here nor there. This is a guy that's wanting to play 4 years, and he had his opportunity to be redshirted. He had proof that he was unable to play. It's pretty cut and dry. And I think that's what happened in Pittsburgh. I think Trinidad's legal team hammered that home. And I think at this point, it's pretty ridiculous for the NCAA to keep going at him about this. I feel like there are other ways to go about this. If you're the NCAA to try to get a win, I don't think this is where you need to.
No, but they've been able to use Ole Miss as a punching bag for years. There's always certain programs, obviously, the NCAA has been able to use as the example, or to make it seem like we are enforcing stuff. Look at us. This guy slept on a couch. Ole Miss can't go to a bowl game now. Like, they've always been able to do that, and they're trying to still do that with Ole Miss, but obviously things have completely changed. Also, this is one of the most popular players in the country. Like, the strategy here is very confusing. But even if you are this crooked organization that's going to selectively enforce different things, move on, bro. Like, this ain't the right player to go after. Like, pick someone else. This is this is the greatest kid in college, like one of the best like characters in the sport right now. The way, I mean, he just the way he handles himself, the way he plays, the way he's raised, like the shot of his mom and him praying before the game. Like, you just cannot come after Trinidad Chambliss and just expect people to just look the other way anymore. I've seen a lot of interactions on social media where people genuinely are like, all right, this is kind of getting out of hand with, the people that may have in the past been like, okay, Ole Miss is kind of ridiculous trying to get Trinidad an extra year. Okay, they win the court case. Then they appeal with the Mississippi Supreme Court. I started seeing some people go, okay, let the kid play. And now with this, I think this NCAA cover thing is really going to affect how a lot of people are viewing the Ole Miss Trinidad Chambliss NCAA case. I've seen a lot of people kind of start to switch over to Trinidad's side to go, come on, man, like this is crazy at this point. Like there's just kind of
hey guys, playing a little bit of devil's advocate here. Is there a moment to where Trinidad and his team just, man, I wash my hands of this? Because obviously that's not the case right now. But do you think they reach a point, or maybe you just need to back off and just let everything go as it is?
I mean, what do you mean? You just mean in terms of like applying pressure legally, or what do you mean by that?
I mean, just completely pulling the plug and not doing anything with the NCAA, not responding, not suing, not communicating, just you can't do that, right? I'm just trying to play a little devil's advocate.
As long as the injunction is a thing, like as long as he's allowed to play, I say because you're not coming back you're not dealing with the NCAA after you leave,
right.
after you play this 2026, 2027 season. Yeah, if I'm him, dude, I'm going all out. Whatever kind of damages you can get them for, I would do it.
I would say the same thing because, look, at this point, I think it's pretty cut and dry. He's going to play. So I think at this point he's like, well, I might as well try to get, a little pound of flesh on the way out too. I think his legal team is probably saying the same thing. Like, hey, look, we not only want to hammer this home because you deserve it, but also because we think we can win. Because I think the way things went down in Pittsburgh, I think there's a lot of confidence on his side, on his legal team side. And then, I think it's pretty, like Sudu said, like, I think a lot of people nationally just in the discourse of college sports are kind of like, like, what's the deal with the NCAA? Why are they doing this? I mean, you want to talk about somebody that you could have picked on, 12, 13 years ago, Johnny Manziel, like one of the most polarizing players of all time and was just an absolute mess off the field. I understand going after somebody like that is flaunting.
Like strategically it makes sense, Zach, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like, this guy's shady enough to where like we could probably win the court of public opinion.
Yeah.
You're not going to get that with Trinidad Chambliss. The kid came from D2. He's a good Christian kid, well-spoken, handles himself. Like all the boxes that you check in those like interviews at the NFL or whatever, like he checks all of those boxes, right? So I don't know how you go after him and think like, yeah, this is going to work out for us. Now that comment, I think it was, who is this? Go to Hell LSU, I think is the name here. The NCAA knew that an advisory board was being formed, wanted to create more chaos. I 100% think a lot of what they're doing right now is they're just, that Trinidad Chambliss case to me was the most apparent example of this. I felt like, and I know our chief legal, our analyst, John Cox, would disagree with me.
He's being efforted, by the way.
Okay, that's perfect. Like John felt like the NCAA had a great case. And me personally, though, just as a non-legal mind watching, was like, it just felt like they didn't put in enough effort. Like, even the judge was kind of, granted, the judge is an Ole Miss guy. I get that. But even he was like, are you serious? Like, Ole Miss came with receipts and records and all the letters, all kinds of stuff. And the NCAA was trying to make points based on previous cases that didn't even seem to apply that much. And in that moment, I went, this kind of feels like they just mailed this in because they want to lose some of these to put pressure on Congress. I think what's foolish in that with the NCAA is you can never rely on Congress to be the one to get do your bidding for you. Like they can't even pass bills, just for day-to-day life for normal citizens. I can't imagine them trying to pass something that's sensible, in regards to college athletics. So I don't know if that strategy is necessarily the right strategy for the NCAA. But once again, I made my position on them very clear. I just have never believed in them as an institution. I think they need to go in order for college athletics to even become what we want it to become. And I just don't think it's going to work out in their favor.
What completely threw me for a loop is when the NCAA said that Ole Miss is the one that is being slighted here because of players like Deuce Knight and backup quarterbacks are not going to get a chance to play. That's where we're at on this.
Their logic is just,
there is no logic.
Exactly.
That's pretty good.
It
totally baffles me, man. It really does. But they got the win in Tuscaloosa and Knox County, though. Good for them.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, Zach, I wanted to ask you. Pete Golden was in the building last night, and he's been I talked to Sudu about this. He's been a huge advocate for the men's and women's basketball program. You stay very close to the vest, ear to the ground with recruiting at the Ole Miss Spirit. That's, of course, an affiliate of On3. That's omspirit.com. Can you give us kind of a rundown? Oh, by the way, hold that thought just for a moment. We've got our chief legal analyst, John Koch, joining us as we go four-way here. John, welcome in, and thanks for the short notice. We were talking
John
briefly
with the Vineyard
about
Vines vest on a Friday, man.
Is there any other way, John?
I'm just
John,
quad box.
it's just trying to
quad box
like you guys.
John, tell us just a little bit about what you've learned in regards to the latest EA Sports conversation piece with Trinidad Chambliss, and also some texts you and I and Ben kind of went back and forth about this possible Supreme Court ruling.
Yeah, I don't know what y'all have been talking about, so I'm just going to talk. The Trinidad's attorneys filed a motion for leave to amend their complaint. Now under our law, you can't just go file once a party has answered, which the NCAA has answered. You have to ask for permission to amend your complaint and give the reasons why you're amending the complaint. And the two reasons that he listed yesterday were he missed out on the cover he alleges that he's missed out on he was one of the three, I think, finalists to be on the cover of college football, which if any of you, I mean, Lord, I was playing that game in the 90s. That's a big thing. And not only for him, but for the university. But I mean, obviously he's the one bringing it. So he's saying that he wants to add his damages there. He's asking, and that takes him into asking for punitive damages and attorney's fees from the NCAA, saying that they did it on purpose. That they were acting spitefully to keep him from doing it. Whether or not he can prove that or not, we'll see. But it puts some more leverage on him. And he also added that, what do they call that? The right of retribution or something like that. To go back and basically say, even though they specifically say the courts have said you cannot do that if you're the NCAA, you can't punish someone for going to court against you retroactively. He's saying that, basically they're threatening to do that. So he has damages from there.
One thing too, John, thanks for that clarification. It got kicked to the Supreme Court, and there's been a lot of back and forth about the judges and their tie into Ole Miss. At the end of the day, where is the case right now, in your opinion, with Trinidad Chambliss, this being kicked to the Supreme Court? What are we expecting from a legal standpoint? At least from a timetable standpoint, I think for most people are kind of wondering what's kind of the legalese here.
At some point, the Supreme Court will either say, and we talked about this before, I think, with Ben, they're either going to say we're denying interlocutory appeal. Again, this is not a final judgment they're appealing. They're appealing the preliminary injunction. So they're basically having to ask the Supreme Court for permission to take up the issue on appeal. The Supreme Court could write a one-sentence order and say denied. And if that happens, it's over. I mean, I say it's over. It just goes back to the state court. But quite frankly, time-wise, it's over. They could do that. They've asked for an expedited hearing. At some point, the Supreme Court could come back and say, okay, yeah, we'll grant preliminary. We'll grant the interlocutory appeal. If they do that, then if they don't put it on an expedited track, then you're looking at 8-9 months at least. I mean, which do your calendar, boys. At that time, and that takes us to about the college football playoff, and so it's kind of over. Or they could take it on an expedited and say, "Hey, Tom, Mars, the rest of the gang, get your stuff to me. We want to hear this pretty quick," and make a ruling. And if that happens, then I guess we could have something. I say fairly soon, but every day that goes by is another day in Trinidad's favor.
What do you think happens from a legal standpoint? Not necessarily on that case, but kind of reverting back to the EA Sports case. Is this a situation to where you feel like that this could benefit Trinidad? And I think from an Ole Miss standpoint, they have to be thinking that's a slight to the university, because that's an opportunity for them to be on the cover with more exposure for the athletic department.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that if that claim is real, and I mean, I'm not privy to the Trinidad Chambliss EA's negotiations. If that's real, then absolutely there's some damages there. If you can prove that the NCAA held him out, kind of delayed, kicked the can, did whatever, and are doing this in an arbitrary and capricious manner, as Judge Whitwell kind of said. Honestly, and this is John Cox, practical person talking. This is a leverage play. Granted, you caught me without me having to study very hard, so I'm probably in a morning where I'm kind of casual today. It's a leverage play. If that comes back, this case is over if the Supreme Court does not give them an interlocutory appeal. If it comes back, that is a leverage play from Trinidad's lawyers to tell the NCAA, go away. You do not want to litigate this. But
I kind of want them to litigate it, John. Let's.
Oh yeah, I mean, keeps me coming on the Talk of Champions, I guess.
Dude,
I don't know.
Another 9-hour live stream, John. Come on, man.
Yeah, what are we waiting on? Yeah, I mean, Brad. I mean, to your initial question, what I think will happen on that, I don't think the NCAA. I don't think the Supreme Court takes it up. I don't. I think that eventually they're going to come back and not really take up the interlocutory appeal. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they do. But I don't think this is that novel a case of law. I mean, they're trying to make it seem like it's analogous to the Hattiesburg eligibility ruling. But the more I read it and the more you think about Trinidad's case, one's asking for a high school kid who really has no damages if you can't play high school sports. I mean, you really don't. You can go to another high school. You can go to the one that you said that you were eligible at and go play high school sports versus a medical red shirt. I mean, they're their own rules is where Trinidad's lawyers hammered them, is that they didn't follow their own rules. And that's what Judge Whitwell found to be arbitrary and capricious. Dude, I said that 1,000 times, I know. I don't think they take it up. I think eventually they come back, deny them. They say there's no reason to have an interlocutory appeal right now. There's no novel issue of law. The administration of justice is not served by Trinidad Chambliss' case coming to us. Y'all go fight it at the lower court, which is code for this case is over.
Correct. John Cox, Chief Legal Analyst. Thanks for jumping on with us, John. I know you're really, really busy today. We wanted to kind of get your thought process on this Trinidad Chambliss versus the NCAA now kicked to the Supreme Court, and also Trinidad Chambliss and his representation. They're going after the NCAA because of all of the damages we think that they are citing that they're incurring because of being left off of the EA Sports cover. Real quick, John, before we go, you say leverage play. I'm assuming from a non-legal person like me, that's basically a shot across the bow of the NCAA, back off.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the best way to put it, Brad. I mean, and if you look, I mean, I go on my Twitter feed or X or whatever it's called every day. There's another lawsuit being filed. I mean, the NCAA is at war, right? I mean, the college sports is a legal battlefield right now, and they've got to learn to pick their battles. And I don't think Trinidad Chambliss is the hill I die on if I'm the NCAA. I mean, I just think, besides him being a popular player and a whatever, I mean, he was hurt. Where I say he was hurt, he was not able to play that year. And that is not the hill I die on. I go down on the kid who went pro at Alabama and wanted to come back.
Bediako.
Yeah, I go down on those hills because I think people are sympathetic to that. I mean, you go down the street in Cleveland, Mississippi, and ask somebody about that kid, they'll go, he went pro.
Yeah.
But you go to Trinidad, he couldn't play that year. Why can I not let him play?
Yeah, John, that was what we talked about during the case, right? That was the difference between with Aguilar and Bediako versus Chambliss. Like, these are completely different cases, and just a normal college sports fan just hears court case NCAA and just makes an opinion. But they're completely different cases. We actually sat here for, like I said, 9 hours and watched the entire, including Judge Whitwell reading that entire decision at the end. Like, we were here for the entire thing. Completely different cases. There was one case that's completely documented. It is it fits the NCAA's medical red shirt to a T. And essentially, from what I took from all of it, the NCAA was like, well, it wasn't really filed at the right time. And so, but it's like the point of the rule is to make sure you don't punish a kid for being hurt and unable to play. But now you're trying to cite these weird roundabout ways to be like, well, it wasn't done properly. It wasn't documented properly. And so, it was completely different. I don't even know why they're trying to die on this hill, because just a normie like me, that's not a lawyer, and I don't have a law degree or anything, I can even come up with that conclusion just by watching this trial,
What's interesting to do, and I think I texted Logan about this earlier this week, Brad, you and I may have had this conversation, is one of the NCAA's arguments in every case, in Trinidad's case is the same. They've made this argument is if you don't do something, everyone and their mother is going to file suit. And we're going to which guess what? They're right. I mean, that's happening right now. Everyone and their mother seems to be filing suit, but my response to the NCAA would be get your act together. I mean,
right.
Learn to apply your rules fairly, or come up with different rules. But anyway, that was one of their arguments. After they filed their motion for an interlocutory appeal with the Supreme Court, they wrote Douglas Minor wrote a letter to the Supreme Court, to the Mississippi Supreme Court, kind of an addendum to it. It just said, "Hey, FYI, here's 2 other cases that have come down. One of which is important for us is in Mississippi, in LaFleur County, 2 Mississippi Valley State basketball players filed suit against the NCAA, asking for a temporary restraining order for eligibility purposes, that they didn't get a red shirt. And again, this is not a medical red shirt. This was, if I read that case, and I read it very quickly, that basically they were red shirted. Their coach was fired midway through the year. They had to burn their red shirt because the school made them play the last 4 or 5 games. Something that's a very abbreviated version of that. But they got a restraining order. Now they have a hearing coming up at some point with the NCAA. But the NCAA is basically telling the Mississippi Supreme Court, that's what makes this important. This is what's coming to court, blah, blah, blah. These people are going to keep coming to court, which is a tough argument to make for them, just because, that whole you can't come to – they're falling back on the Hattiesburg case. You can't come to court. You have to abide by our rules if you play by us. You play for us. It's tough to tell a judge we don't let people come to court.
John, we appreciate it. I know you're slammed today, but thanks for jumping on and just providing a little bit of context. And we'll talk to you really soon. John Cox, our chief legal analyst. Thanks, John.
See y'all.
Thanks, John. Take care, man.
Appreciate John jumping on. He does a great job with all of our legalese here on the Talk of Champions. Zach, I want to circle back to what we were getting at before John joined us. The recruiting, and that's just kind of the lifeblood of any program. It feels like, just from the outside looking in, you're much closer to it than all of us. That Pete Golding is putting much more of an onus on high school recruiting than Lane Kiffin did. Right or wrong, it just feels like that's the way the recruiting is going now at Ole Miss. Is that pretty safe to say?
Yeah, I'd say the approach is a little more aggressive up front. With Kiffin, Ole Miss emphasized high school recruiting, but I think a lot of it was on the back burner for most of the spring. I think Kiffin was more focused on onboarding new guys, getting ready for spring ball, getting ready for summer. And then they would kind of hone in on, 20, 25, 30 guys for the fall, and then get ready for signing day. Now it seems like it's just in the complete reverse, where Pete Golding and the rest of the staff are really, really hitting the road hard, getting out and going to see guys in home, at school, getting official visits set up. I know Ole Miss is going to be hosting guys this month for official visits. I think the calendar is speeding up every cycle. More and more kids want to get the decision out of the way and want to pick a school and just focus on being a senior in high school and playing. You're seeing that more and more. There's always going to be the high profile guys that drag it out until signing day, or, they're going to, hear everyone out and see what kind of deals they can get, see what kind of NIL money people are going to throw at them. But I think that's pretty safe to say that Pete Golding's been very aggressive, and I'm excited to see how different this will be. It's a pretty loaded cycle again. Mississippi has a lot of really high profile talent once again, and Ole Miss is in a really good spot with several of them.
Looking at this year's crop of talent, Zach, who are a couple of names that Ole Miss fans need to be familiar with, maybe in the state of Mississippi? It feels like Pete, and now that Kelvin Bolden's back in the fold, Dante Moncrief, that they're recruiting the state of Mississippi. And, Mississippians like to think that their state is being recruited a little more than Lane did, if you will. Are there any players that Ole Miss fans need to be on the look for, maybe next year or the year after or the year after that?
Yeah, I mean, it happened, I guess, a week ago, 2 weeks ago. Time doesn't matter anymore. Ben Jarvis, Shoemaker.
Yeah.
I had during the season when people would ask me like, who's going to be the first 27 commit? He was the one that I always said. He wasn't the first, but he's in the fold now. Ben actually like teased it on our show the day he committed. So Ben looked really good there, calling it. But yeah, the coaches really like him. I know I've talked to some people that think he's the best player in the state. I think outside of him, the big ones, obviously, Caden Moss, the 5-star offensive tackle at Jackson Academy. One player in one recruiting class is not going to make or break your program. But look, just from the optics here, and for Ole Miss, you cannot let this kid get out of your state. A 5-star offensive tackle at Jackson Academy that you believe can play at the Power 4 level, you have to sign him. I think Ole Miss is going to. I think right now Ole Miss is the favorite. I expect Caden Moss to be in Oxford quite a bit. He will take visits. He would take unofficial. He would take officials. There's a lot of times kids in the state of Mississippi won't do official visits to Ole Miss just because they can simply drive up and it doesn't matter. But I do think that Ole Miss is going to really, really, really push to get him in this class. I think Trey Collins is another guy to keep an eye on. He was committed to Ole Miss, decommitted right after Kiffin left for LSU, which was kind of funny because I asked Trey earlier that week what he thought about all the Kiffin drama, and he just said, I'm not really paying attention to it. I don't really know what's going on. And then right when Kiffin leaves, he decommits. The staff really wants him back. He's a really talented athlete who plays both ways for Ridgeland. Yeah, I mean, the in-state crop is pretty loaded with Derwin Fields and edge out of Brookhaven. You've got Cordero McDaniel is an offensive tackle from Brookhaven. LaMarcus Jones was a previous commit. He's from Callaway. He's an offensive tackle. Several of those guys were all in Oxford together. Caden Moss, all those offensive linemen I just mentioned. And then Antonio Kiefer from Memphis, from Southwind High School, is another guy that Ole Miss really wants. So I think you're going to see a very concerted effort in the trenches. And Ole Miss may not have to go very far to shore that up with the talent that's inside the Magnolia State this year.
Hey, one player, Zach, I wanted to ask you about is Mitchell Turner, the defensive lineman out of Louisville. Obviously, Louisville, Coach Tyrone Shorter, they do a really good job. He's obviously Ole Miss wants him really bad. So does Alabama. What are your thoughts on Turner? And if you look at the top 5 in the state of Mississippi, Moss, number 1, Shoemaker, number 2 is committed to Ole Miss. Turner, 3 is getting looked, obviously, at Ole Miss. And you've got Sam Lejeune out of Poplarville and then Tyson Robinson. So your thoughts on Turner, and you kind of went over a lot of those other players. So it looks like, Golding and company is really putting a big focus on Mississippi.
Yeah, I haven't seen Turner in person yet. I'm hoping to see him at the New Orleans Under Armour camp next month. I know that there's some people that are kind of split on him. They like the frame, they like the ability, but a lot of people think, hey, the tape looks great, and then some people are like, well, we need to see a little bit more. I think that's going to be someone that probably gets evaluated down the line. I think he's a candidate for, if I'm Ole Miss, I want to get him in person and let's test him. Let's make him run. Let's see what he runs for us in person. Let's get the cones out. Let's get, see what he does in the 3-cone. Let's see what kind of lateral movement he has. Because look, he's 6'3", 275. He moves well. I mean, he put up some video game numbers as a junior, but I think he is someone that you're going to want to evaluate a little bit further. And it's not a slight to Turner. I think it's just one of those where a premium position like that, in-state guy, and look, money's involved here. These guys are going to get NIL deals. They're going to get, all of that thrown at them. I think you want to make sure for that kind of investment. We talked about Moss. I don't think Ole Miss is really going to look too hard at Tyson Robinson. And then same with Lejeune. I think he's probably looking out of state. If I had to guess, say Florida State's up there, LSU's up there. He's someone that he kind of popped on the scene at some camps. I had someone tell me that he was kind of he's like a camp psycho. Like he's like the dude that kind of is really loud and does a lot of things at camps that turns your head. But one name I think to keep an eye on, just because of the, premium position on offense, and I know this kid really likes Ole Miss, is Ty Keys, the running back from Poplarville. He's Lejeune's teammate. Really big, physical kid, probably going to play around 200 pounds, but he's a running back. He's put up some crazy numbers. He's going to have a really good senior year, but he has a legitimate shot at breaking Jarius Norwood's record for all-time rushing yards in the state. He really likes Ole Miss. He told me that he, quote, loves Mississippi and loves Ole Miss. So I think if he has the opportunity, I think he would stay put in state and would pick Ole Miss. We obviously know how deep the running back room is, but that's a name I'd keep an eye on if I were Ole Miss fans.
Zach, I have a question about
Go ahead.
Out-of-state kid. I think the lone quarterback commit right now, Keegan Croucher from Baylor.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen in recent, days that there's other schools really pushing to flip him. I mean, the kid's like almost 6'5", 200 pounds, still hasn't played his senior year of high school. It's really exciting. Look, if we weren't in this NIL era, like Ole Miss fans would be talking about this kid like we used to back in the day when you had a quarterback committed that was in high school. You don't hear a lot of that these days, but that's what I'm here for. I want to hype this kid up. What are the chances these other schools can make a push? I've seen Indiana, Kentucky, Georgia really coming hard at him. How do you feel about just being able to hold on to him because you have so much time to go before he officially will make it to campus?
Yeah, I think the one to actually be concerned about is Kentucky. I think Georgia's kind of moved on. I want to say Georgia is going after another quarterback. I want to say it's the Bork kid that was committed to Michigan. He's from Tabor Academy up in the Northeast. So from, the same area Croucher's from. Kentucky's the real threat. Will Stein's the head coach there now. He was the OC at Oregon when Oregon was recruiting Croucher. Oregon was a finalist. Ole Miss won out. I think the key here is Joe Judge. I think as long as Joe Judge is in Oxford, Croucher will sign with Ole Miss. He never wavered during the coaching change. His dad was pretty adamant about how much the family values the investment that Ole Miss has put into their son. Joe Judge immediately reached out to him during the coaching change and assured him, like, hey, man, we're good, right? We're still all in with you if you're all in with us. He said the same thing, like, hey, I'm good. If you're an Ole Miss fan, I think it's actually better that he transferred to the Baylor school up in Chattanooga. You have two Baylor alum on the roster in Chicago Mills Knight and Bryson Sanders. There's a pretty solid Ole Miss influence around that school and around that alumni network. And it doesn't hurt that, hey, now he goes to Baylor and you're trying to get David Gabriel George, the 5-star running back that's with him. So, I don't think there's any concern right now. I know people are going to worry about him taking visits. That's just going to happen at this point. I mean, it's not smart from a business standpoint. I hate to use that word, but that's just what it is at this point. You want to have some safety nets. You want to have some assurances if something were to fall through with Ole Miss, you can go somewhere else. So he's going to take his visits and look, it's an OV, like it's free. Go somewhere and get wine and dined. I mean, that's fun. I think Ole Miss is in a great spot with him. He really showed out at the Atlanta Rivals camp. I know some had him as the MVP. If you want to play the fashion game, he was there with an Ole Miss towel on. So he wasn't playing any games with any Kentucky swag. But yeah, good kid. Really quiet. I'm excited to see him in person. Selfishly, I'm glad he transferred to Baylor because now I can go see him. But yeah, loaded program. I already mentioned Gabriel George as the running back. They've got a lot of talent around him. Braxton Rain is a tight end there. Ole Miss is recruiting him. He's a 28 kid. So yeah, I think for folks worrying about the quarterback position and the future of the quarterback position, right now, I wouldn't be too concerned about Croucher and anybody else.
Zach, we appreciate all that insight in recruiting. It's, Pete Golding, when he was a defensive coordinator, I think a lot of Ole Miss fans appreciated the fact him being obviously a Louisiana guy, but played at Delta State and knew the state of Mississippi really well, married someone from Mississippi. it is a huge component in Ole Miss recruiting. And now that he's the head coach, Zach, I think a lot of people need to understand he's still the crux of this Ole Miss recruiting coordinator / recruiting athletes to Ole Miss. And I think that's good. Even when Lane was here, I mean, Pete was a huge component of recruiting, correct? I mean, really continuing to do what was done before. So I think Ole Miss fans can take solace in knowing with Pete as a head coach, nothing's changing in his recruiting philosophy.
Yes. Some might say Pete was in charge of recruiting when Lane was here.
Yeah.
If you catch my drift. Yeah, I've talked to people around the program that are really excited about this because the word that I keep hearing is collaborative. Like it's not just like, okay, this is a position coach. You only recruit your position. Like you've now got coaches that have territories again, where with Kiffin, you didn't really have that. You just had like, all right, you're a running backs coach, Kevin, so you only recruit running backs, which I think is a detriment to your recruiting strategy. I mean, you have guys that have ties to different areas. Like it made sense for Kevin Smith to recruit Florida because that's where he's from. But now I'm hearing more and more that Pete is allowing everyone to be collaborative in the effort of recruiting guys, where it's not just a position thing. It's everyone's pulling in the same direction. You mentioned Dante Moncrief. I had somebody that's on staff told me that he is a major piece of this recruiting cycle. And they absolutely love that he is on staff. I mean, it's someone that is from Mississippi, played at Ole Miss, and then played in the NFL. And now he's back at Ole Miss on staff. And I think that that's huge on all fronts, not just for Mississippi kids, but other kids elsewhere that, hey, like this guy went to Ole Miss and then went to the NFL and played. Like he can do it. Because, a lot of times, these kids don't watch, like they don't watch games. Like you could say, well, Laramie Tunsil is a $30 million man. Like you don't know about him. There's a lot of kids that probably don't. They might know Laramie Tunsil. They may not know he went to Ole Miss. Jackson Dart, he's a little bit bigger name in the NFL these days because of the year he had. But again, like these like 16, 17-year-old kids, like as a sicko that watches pretty much anything, it kind of blows me away that they don't really watch football. So it's a tangible thing when you go on a visit and you meet Dante Moncrief and you're like, oh, that's you on the wall right there. Like that's your jersey. Okay, I get it. So that's big. Brad, you mentioned Kelvin Bolden. Him and Austin Thomas being back is huge just for the sake of just being, organized and, having an actual plan, where I think there were times in the last 6 years where there really wasn't a plan. It was just kind of a, hey, you go get this kid. We like him. I think Pete is he seems to me like he's a very cerebral, organized, almost to the level of like very OCD about how he does things and goes about his process. And I think him being in charge now, and I think Ole Miss fans should be excited about this person being in charge of not only your football program, but recruiting, because the dude's an animal. Like he, the joke he made about Steve Sarkisian when he was trying to get Arch Manning. I mean, the dude, like he will do what it takes. So him being the head coach and heading up your recruiting efforts, I think is exciting for Ole Miss.
And guys, before we get out of here today, a big 3-game series against Texas. I talked with Zach last night, Sudu, about not being ranked by D1 baseball, and it just feels like, what metrics are you looking at, right? So, but my thought process was, with Texas coming up in a 3-game series, and you fast forward, you got Mississippi State in a couple of weeks, Kentucky, a non-con in between, and you just came off a road trip to Southern Miss, a loss. Those rankings will shake themselves out in the wash without question. But a big series coming up. Sudu, I talked with you earlier in the week about what a successful weekend would be like. Zach, I'll kind of throw it to you and to Sudu as well. With the 3-game series against Texas coming up, kind of what are you expecting tonight and what's to come for Ole Miss baseball?
I think it starts with pitching. Brad, we talked about it last night. I think Cade Townsend's been just absolutely electric, and he's got a 0.48 ERA right now. I think he's pitched like 18-something innings. I think he has 40-plus strikeouts. He's been lights out. I think Hunter Elliott and Will Libbert need to not be so liberal with the pitch count. I think they need to really button up there. And I think it could be by design with Mangrum and Bianco, where they haven't wanted them to go more than 5 innings. We'll see tonight, right? We'll see if they leave Elliott in, if the game's close or Ole Miss has a lead. But yeah, head to head here, this is as good of a 3-game pitching matchup as you get. All name team guy here, Ruger Riojas is the Friday starter. I mean, guy's name is Ruger. That's pretty awesome. He's 4-0. Got 1.23 ERA. Then Luke Harrison and Dylan Volantis will finish up Saturday, Sunday. Yeah, it's hard to go win at Dish Falk. They get rowdy there. It should be a great crowd. Yeah, as we said last night, Brad, I think you know what you're getting at the top of the lineup with Ole Miss. I think if you can continue to be consistent, Dom Decker gets on base, Joe Udemark has some extra base hits and some home runs. You got Colin Reuter hitting in the gaps, and then you keep, if Becerra can keep this up, I mean, Ole Miss is going to be dangerous. And I think if you get Foley rolling again, it takes the pressure off the bottom of the lineup. So Texas is damn good. So just go in there and try to win one. And then game 2s and 3s, it's just, hey, let's just, try to steal another one and try to get a road series win. But it's going to be tough.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it. Yeah, we talked about it. It's gonna be really tough.
No doubt about it, man. I was looking at some numbers this morning. I mean, Ruger, by the way, I'm with you, man. Just a great name for a pitcher. But best strikeout pitcher in the conference, man. He's got 42 Ks in those 4 appearances. I think it's second in the nation total. Their team ERA right now is 2.42. And then their defense holds the 4th best fielding percentage in the nation. They also have one of the best offenses in the country, 162 runs in 16 games. I mean, top to bottom, this is like we said, it's gonna tell a lot about what this Ole Miss team is and maybe how they can handle some adversity as well. My impression was the same as Zach's. If you can get one out of this, I think you feel pretty good knowing you're going on the road in a tough environment to play one of the best teams in the country. But once again, it's about getting some hits. It's what we saw with Southern Miss. The pitching will be there for Ole Miss, I think, but you just got to get hits, and that bottom third of the order's really got to step up, in my opinion, as well, and kind of provide some support there.
Pretty impressive stat here, fellas. Since getting into the SEC in 2022, Jim Schlossnagle has more conference series wins than anybody else in the league. 29. Tony Vitello was next at 27. He's now gone. He's with the Giants. But Dane Van Horn's got 26, Jay Johnson 24, and Kevin O'Sullivan 24. So 29 SEC series wins since 2022 is a pretty loud stat.
There's an opportunity without question tonight for Texas and or should I say for Ole Miss at Texas. But tonight also is Ole Miss has an opportunity to continue to make history. Ben Garrett posted and did a story on the Ole Miss Spirit where it said Ole Miss is the first, 15 seed to make it to 2-0 in SEC tournament history. And so continue to make a run. They'll have an opportunity tonight against Alabama. That tips off at 6 o'clock. There'll be a post-game show. Please join Zach Berry and I following the game. We'll get to all the news and notes from head coach Chris Beard along with players, and then we'll come to you from the Bridgestone Arena and kind of recapping the game between Ole Miss and Alabama. Hope the Rebs can be 3-0 here in Nashville. Sudu, thanks for jumping on. We appreciate all you do for the Talk of Champions Network. Thanks to all of our sponsors and everything they do for us here. And Zach, we'll see you here in just a little bit inside the Bridgestone Arena. I'm here in Nashville. We'll have Ole Miss full coverage for you, by the way, from Nashville for Zach Berry. Coverage all throughout the SEC tournament. Ben is on his way back. Chuck Brownsville is manning the board along with Ben. And then Jake Thompson is providing full coverage from Austin for Ole Miss and Texas in baseball. Huge 3-game set. Full coverage, as always, all Rebels all the time right here on the Ole Miss Spirit. And, of course, the Talk of Champions Network. For Sudu and for Zach, I'm Brad Logan here from Nashville. We'll talk to you soon here on the Talk of Champions. All right, guys. Thank you all very much.